If you want to completely dominate your goals, you have to be what I call a systematic thinker. This means looking at the entire world as a series of interconnected webs, systems within systems, all interacting with each other. So in this video, we will, number one, learn what systems actually are, because if you know what a system is, then you probably don't. Number two, understand how all persistent worldly problems and most of your own personal problems are systematic and stem from systems. And finally, apply the principles of systematic thinking to actually use it to our advantage and drive success. I want you to understand that systems aren't easy. They're complex and hard to understand, which is why you need to study how they work. Knowing how and why something works is how you make adjustments and personalizations for yourself. If you want to change the things that are outside of you, the government, corporations, how a work environment functions, all of these things are very hard to understand. All of these things are larger than you. There's an undeniable system behind all of these things. This even applies to the goals that you set for yourself, right? No one just sets a goal for no reason. A goal is meant to be out of reach. It's why most people don't reach their goals and only a few do, because they don't actually think, how do I accomplish my goals? How do I go about having a big impact on the world? The answer is that you only do it by learning systems. That's actually one of the biggest reasons to be a systematic thinker, to make a meaningful positive impact in the world. What is impact? Impact is change. To accomplish your goals or create real change, you're going to be changing some sort of system to do that. Leaders, visionaries, designers, architects, artists, their lives and careers revolve around making meaningful impact in the world. It's also important to note that all systems have a purpose and a function. Understanding the purpose or function determines the general behavior of what the system is doing. The most common purpose and function of all systems is to protect itself. It is highly ordered, but at the same time chaotic and difficult to predict. Think about corporations, governments, cities. See it from a larger perspective. These systems exhibit very similar characteristics to a living creature or cell. When you poke at it, it will run away, exhibit fear, get angry or lash out at you, get defensive, or ultimately, as we said, protect itself. Another example are languages. Believe it or not, languages are a system. They are highly ordered and structured. Their purpose is to be evolutionary and to continuously shift. It's the reason why when we read Shakespeare, we don't know what the hell he's talking about. I'm based in the UK. I don't know how many of you read Shakespeare in your English classes, but I personally didn't know what the hell he was talking about. But think about how the English language has evolved over the past 500 years. And not only that, but also how the larger language of humanity has evolved over the past 2,000 years. The whole point I mentioned that is because language, if you didn't know, is also a system. No system is designed by one person sitting from the outside. It's not the one man invented language, right? It's self-made and self-organizing. Now, what isn't a system? Scattered parts aren't a system. Rocks on the ground aren't a system. They don't interconnect in an interesting, meaningful way. Books on a bookshelf aren't a system. There's no meaningful relationship. Examples of a system include the rainforest, a human body, an aquarium, a city or a country, a sport, a corporation, big or small, an economy, a currency, a university, a car, militaries, the public education, Instagram, churches, mosques, your business. We spoke on the one-person business in the last video where I outlined a 7-day plan to get started. That's a system. This YouTube video and my entire social media is a system. I basically am a one-man show. I do most of the stuff with no employees. A successful creator who produces his own work online isn't just an influencer, right? It's a complicated system. I don't just make videos. I write, I record, I edit and send it off to my editor. I manage my website, I manage my products and services. I manage my back-end stuff. I manage my backup drives. I work via several technologies, computers, laptops, smartphones. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, and everything you see that is successful has an undeniable system behind it. The self is a system. You are a system. Your physical body has numerous systems, a digestive system, an immune system, and so on. But your self-image is also a system. Your memory, beliefs, they're all a part of the self. It's easier to think of it as the universe as one big system and everything within it is a subsystem. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, systems within systems. They can overlap in complicating ways. There's been huge, persistent, systematic problems that have existed for thousands of years. And they're not easy to step out of because it's not human beings that are the problem, but the system that's creating those problems. Think about poverty. How long have people tried to eradicate poverty, but it's still here? It's a persistent, systematic problem. The shrinking middle class. Every country has had it since the beginning of human civilization. The environment, global warming, pollution, these aren't new. Environmental problems have existed since cities were first formed 1,000 years ago. It obviously wasn't global warming back then, but it was something else. Maybe disease found in water pipes. Drug addiction is another one. It has existed for thousands of years. War, obesity, crime, marketing. Marketing is an interesting one. Have you realized how difficult it is to market high consciousness activities and so easy to market low consciousness activities? Unemployment, education, depression. We have a depression epidemic. Why is that? It's a systematic problem. Something in our society is creating it. These are, if you've noticed, very difficult problems to solve. You can't solve most big problems because there's a larger system behind it that we aren't aware of. And I know I use this title because it is somewhat trendy, but if you look at most creators on this platform, they're only talking on the topic in terms of business and content, but it goes way beyond that. The main aim is to understand big problems without a meaningless judgment. Most people just sit on their couch screaming at the telly. These wars are stupid. He's a corrupt person. Crime is silly. We have such bad unemployment numbers. But you can't just sit on your couch and point fingers. What most people should do, including myself, is question their lack of understanding. Where are those problems coming from? What is creating them? Which forces are at play? Once you understand the system itself, then and only then you have a slight chance of changing it. The same thing goes for you. If you really want to change your life, now we're stepping into personal development, then go internal. Have a think about your own internal systems. Your beliefs are a system of its own. So question it. What are my beliefs? Let's now discuss the principles and values of systematic thinking so that we can use them to our advantage and drive success in our own personal and professional lives. The first principle is that problems are systematic, not personal. It's not one person or thousands of people that are creating problems. It's poorly designed systems that are creating those problems. So if you're not where you want to be and are casting blame at other people or calling things evil, ask yourself why you're doing it. What is the larger system creating this? For example, not every person who uses drugs are evil. Some of them can be, but not all of them. We know this. It's the environment, bad education, easy availability of drugs, the media serving such low conscious entertainment. People don't have anything higher to aspire to. For those who are addicted to drugs, there is nothing better to do than drugs. This tells us one thing: problems are a lot more complicated than we think. But it is a great principle to acknowledge that problems are systematic, not personal. Principle 2. See everything as systems. I want you to be extremely conscious and self-aware. Everything around you, or most things around you, are a system. For the next 3 days, regardless if you're at home, walking down the street, at your workplace, working on your side hustle, or even working out, I want you to identify and spot out systems. You don't have to do this your entire life, but it can be a phase. Become very self-aware of every single system around you. By the way, this is not a step-by-step video guide, so take whatever I say in this video as a principle of systematic thinking. The third is non-linearity. The really interesting things in life are not a simple equation with a few variables. They have hundreds and thousands of variables that affect each other. If you think about it, Monopoly is linear. We know the rules of the game. It's easy. Now, what would be tricky is if one of the rules in Monopoly was that we could change the rules. That makes it tricky because now the strategy can't be relying on rules. If rules can change, that makes things unpredictable. The system can now take dramatic turns and surprise you. That's what systems are. Systems are counterintuitive. You can't just say, I will do this to get that. There are many factors, as we spoke on, variables affecting it. Naive people who don't understand the system and decide to muck around with it get the opposite of what they want. Then they're stuck facing the consequences. One chaotic system is the weather. It's unpredictable when we try predicting it too far into the future. It can also surprise you. You can't predict beyond 10 days. We can still predict it reasonably well, just as long as we understand the limits of our predictions. Non-linearity also means that just because you have good intentions to change a system, that really doesn't mean anything. People who have good intentions but are simple-minded get the opposite effect. They create evil rather than good. It's why good people actually create evil. They assume that their good intentions are enough, but you have to understand what you're doing. In other words, you have to study the system. Number 4, local actions have global impact. This one applies to business very well. When you do business, you can't just think about your company, right? That's not systematic thinking. Your company itself is an element within a larger system. For example, the global economy, the national economy, the industry that your company is a part of. You need to understand that your actions don't just affect your company. It affects the industry, citizens all over the world, employment rates, taxes, currency, public opinion. You have to take into account all of it, otherwise you will fail in the long run. The world is becoming more global by the day. Start thinking more globally. How you or what you're doing fits into the larger system that it is a part of. Broaden your scope. This means having global concern rather than local tribal concern. Simple-minded people are tribal. Systematic thinking is anti-tribal. It's a global concern over the entire species, seeing everything as the same, being sustainable. The 6th is becoming conscious of backfiring mechanisms. A lot of the times, if you change something in a system, it will backfire on you. The system is its own greatest enemy. You need counterintuitive solutions to fix counterintuitive problems. This applies to everything from education to how companies are run, to marketing, economics, taxation, healthcare, etc. The funny thing is, the more you study systematic thinking, the more you will realize that we are our own greatest enemy. That's what personal development is. It's realizing I am my worst enemy. That's why in systematic thinking, there are no easy solutions. Violent, disruptive change to a complex system is going to create even more disaster, not fix it. So don't overreact to systematic problems. It's all about balance and harmony. It relies on both positive and negative emotions. The seventh is intuition and holism versus reductionism. We see these problems in universities. A lot of scientifically minded, logical, rational people overanalyze everything and reduce it down to physics, only focusing on the materialistic and gross elements and ignoring all the interesting relationships, which really, as we know now, interesting relationships define the behavior of all the systems around us. Holism is seeing everything as a whole, not just parts. For example, it's not just about looking at your brain as one single part, right? A lot of people talk about the prefrontal cortex. That's not the only part of your brain that you need to worry about or learn about. It's seeing your brain as a whole. It's a very complex system. Number 8, being aware of false boundaries. In reality, there are no fixed boundaries in the universe. Everything is subjective. We as humans get to decide where we draw the boundaries. This is an important power. How we draw boundaries essentially determines what we're going to see and what solutions we ultimately come up with. Redrawing boundaries gives you solutions you didn't have before. This means to change your perspective. If your worldview doesn't serve you, then try looking at things differently. Number 9, the world is dynamic, not static. Simple-minded people see the world as static. This is my car, my house, my country, my language, my body, my beliefs. The world is static to the naive. To the systematic thinker, most things are morphing and evolving. My body is evolving. My car is actually devolving. It's deteriorating every single day. The government and country is changing. The population is increasing. The world itself is evolving. Beliefs and ideologies are changing. Your job, marketplace, and industry, AI, right? All of it is changing. Don't have a fixed, static mindset in a dynamic, complicated world. If you are static, most of the times you won't get the results that you want or desire because you aren't reflecting reality. You aren't reflecting nature. Back to the language analogy, have a think about it. Every single year, the dictionary publishes a new word. The 10th principle is to value complexity, nuance, wisdom, and learning. Don't oversimplify everything because not everything is just black and white. Systematic thinkers value wisdom and lifelong learning. They understand that systems are complex. You need ongoing learning, otherwise you will stay stuck. Also, don't try to manipulate systems. Try to understand them. That's where your solution lies. Invest a lot of time in just understanding systems. A lot of people will look at you and see you as a mad scientist, but that's often how average people view extremely successful people. Have a strong interest in learning. There's so much more to learn. Principle 11, take preventative action rather than fixing problems once they arise. This means being forward-looking, seeing things from a long time horizon. For those who own a business, it's not just about the next quarter's profits, but sustaining the company to grow, thrive, and change the marketplace 10 to 20 years down the line. It's expecting unforeseen consequences of your actions. If you own a company, that's not going to affect only you, but also your employees. But not only that, the entire industry. That's the other thing. Understanding systems, how one thing affects another, makes you humble. You understand every little touch can become a huge thing. Please take away this from this video. Understanding and mastering systems isn't just about achieving your goals. It's about admitting the unknown. It's realizing you really don't know anything. You're probably not simple-minded if you're watching this video. You generally laugh at simple-minded people who say, I know everything. Also, self-reflection is extremely important. Systematic thinkers need to self-reflect. Raising your consciousness will solve a lot of the problems that you have in your life. How can you solve your own problems when you can't even reflect inside of yourself and see what your own structural problems are. That's the reason why systematic thinkers need self-reflection. The entire point of this is to go inward, to search for the root cause of problems rather than the superficial aspects. Dig deep. I know everything usually revolves around fear and emotional stuff, but what is the root cause? And the last principle is to study patterns and cycles. If your work is not solving meaningful world problems, all of the persistent systematic problems that we mentioned earlier on in the video, you will get eliminated, and I can guarantee you won't be successful. Now, before I close off this video, I want to show you what success looks like in business, content, and marketing from a systems point of view. The first correct step is to identify the main purpose or functions. Now, we will talk about content specifically in a bit, but for most businesses that would be marketing, sales, operations, and finance. After you've identified the main purpose or function, list out every task in those functions. Then write down the goal of each task, but more importantly, the end goal. What is the purpose of each task or goal? For example, do you create content for followers? If you do, that's not sustainable, right? We're back to the concept of sustainability. The industry has eventually caught up to the fact that followers don't matter, because essentially there is no purpose of followers. You should create content to generate leads. Now this raises questions. Where are you sending your followers? What's the end goal here? Every task within a system, that's any system, needs a clear goal. For example, a newsletter doesn't come before content because there's no point of a newsletter if you don't have an email list. So the priority then would be that content comes before a newsletter. Then for each task, write down the steps that you would have to follow to complete that task. Just a quick plug, if you are an online creator and you want me to guide you on how to systemize content, there is a free guide in the description below. I want you to think of this business system as a pipe. The goal is the smooth flow of water through the pipe. When things feel stuck, progress feels slow, leads are inconsistent, sales are sloppy, or the performance is unpredictable, it's because a part of that pipe system is blocked. Seeing your business in the eye of this water pipe analogy is extremely useful. The pipe has different sections: marketing, sales, operations, finance. At the start of the pipe, the water is leads, and at the end of the pipe, it is profit. Your marketing is the tap. This is important. It essentially controls how much water quantity flows through the pipe system. I hope this is all making sense. For profit, you need clients. To get clients, you need sales. To get sales, you need leads. And to get leads, you need marketing. So the more the marketing, meaning the more you open that tap and let water flow through, the more potential leads, clients, customers you get entering the system. But here's the thing, and this is the whole point of systems. The marketing doesn't matter if you have 10 blockages. Think about the pipe analogy. Most people try fixing all blockages at once, but when you try fixing everything, nothing gets fixed. So the goal is to fix one main blockage. This will feel like you're moving slower, I get that. But if you try fixing everything at once, it feels fast until you realize you're not actually solving anything. By going slow, you actually move fast. So in the business sense, to scale, that's simple, just turn up your marketing. But clear the pipe first before you turn up the tap. Only once the system can handle it. Don't pour water into a broken pipe. That's all from me. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Like, comment, subscribe. All of my links are down in the description below. Creator Business Essentials Guide is down in the description below. So if you want a better understanding of how content works or how to systemize content, then click the link below. That's all from me. I'll see you in the next video.